Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. I think it's going really great from where I'm sitting. I've had two really interesting sessions so far here in the Wisteria room. We're going to head over now into our third session of the morning, and this one is looking to the future. We have John Hope, the senior sales engineer at Sophos, Poppy Angle, the campaign manager at Phoenix, and Aaron Woods, the cybersecurity business manager at Phoenix. And we're going to head over to them now. Before we do, I just wanted to mention, please be sure to use the Q&A, the two overlapping chat buttons in the video, to answer your questions and upvote the ones most interesting to you. And let's go.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all doing well today. Thank you for joining us for our session. My name is Poppy Angel, and I'm joined by my colleague from Sophos, John Hope.
Hi there.
I'm going to spend a little bit of time today outlining the changes we've seen within the charity sector throughout lockdown, and as we welcome a new normal, specifically around security. A little bit about Phoenix. Phoenix have been around for about 30 years, and we have a fantastic understanding of the charity sector. We have transacted with over 1,000 charities this year alone, and we've worked with over 4,000 charities in the 15 years that we have them on record. So we'd like to think we know a little bit about your sector and how we can help solve some of your challenges. So the reason we're here today is that John and I want to take some time to really highlight how the charity sector has changed during lockdown, how we can solve some of the problems that we think you're facing, and how Sophos and Phoenix can work with you to mitigate some of the risks that have happened due to lockdown. So I'm going to start by outlining some of the hard facts. Now, up to 88% of charities have said they expect COVID to have a negative impact on their ability to meet their charity objectives over the next 6 months. The SCVO have said that half the charities they surveyed in Scotland are expected to run out of money in the next 6 months. 42% of charities say they are now worried about having to reduce the number of services they offer compared to before lockdown. 84% of charities reported a decrease or significant decrease in their income. 92% of charities reported a fall in trading income during lockdown, and a staggering 12.4 billion less funding is expected during this financial year. So I think the point I'm trying to make, and I think the point that you're going to understand, is that charities are already a very restricted sector. You know, you guys struggle to get money out of the government at the best of times. And with the way that consumers help charities, namely through fundraising, not having people out on the streets, not having charity shops open, and with a huge change to how you transact with your customers, it's going to make those purse strings all that little bit more tighter. So what I'm saying is, you guys are going to have to work with what you have, and you need to sort of really stretch that budget as far as it can go. So we're going to spend a little bit of time highlighting some of the key pain points that we've seen with our charity customers since the start of the financial year, and how we can propose we will help you without breaking the bank. We appreciate it's going to be harder than ever to secure the budget for some of you, and we want to show you how you can achieve high performance security but with a smaller budget. So we're going to cover 4 areas today. And these are not areas we've just pulled out of nowhere. These are areas that we spoke to our customers about ourselves. We understand they are some of the main challenges that you're going to be facing from an IT security standpoint. We know there will be wider problems outside of this, but these are the 4 that we're going to cover today, and how Phoenix and Sophos can help you. So bring your own device is something that we have seen marginally over the few years. You know, I think if you don't have a huge budget, buying mass amounts of devices to furnish your staff with is always going to be a luxury. And we understand that charities to begin with, prior to lockdown, probably already didn't have these devices. So when everybody got sent home in March, it was very much a case of, if you have a laptop or you have a device or a tablet or something that you can use to join the network and, you know, work with your colleagues, you had to bring your own. And these do come with a security risk. John, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Poppy. You're spot on. You know, we've seen this across all different sectors, including charities, of course. People really just scrambling to grab hold of any device that they can carry on doing their work and delivering those services. And you know, that's great from the point of view of obviously continuing service delivery, but it does come with a significant number of risks. I mean, first and foremost, of course, if it's somebody's own personal device, then it's not going to be managed by your IT department, and you have no control over the security settings on that particular device. So it might not be up to date from a patching point of view that can leave that device potentially vulnerable. You may not necessarily have any kind of antivirus or endpoint protection on that device, and you need to be very mindful about even basic things like if it's a smartphone, that particular user might not have enabled things like a password lock or some kind of face recognition or something similar. And what it means is all the data that's residing on those personal devices is potentially open to risk. The good news is that there's something that we can do to help with this. So as part of the Sophos portfolio, we have a mobile device management capability. And what that will do is allow you to manage obviously your corporate devices, but also manage your bring your own devices as well. So you can put some controls on those devices without really taking ownership of that device away from the individual, because at the end of the day it is their smartphone. But you can insist that if that user is going to receive corporate data, that they've done the basics like password locks. And you can put corporate data into what's called a container, for example, and it kind of keeps your private information secure and isolated away from the rest of the smartphone. So the users can still use their phone in the normal way, but that corporate data and those resources that you've got there that might be potentially quite sensitive, you can keep that to one side. And if you need to, for example, if the user reports in that they've lost their device, then you can very easily erase the data that's in that container so that you keep that data safe. So we talked a lot about these things. We talked a lot about smartphones, but also users might be using kind of more regular devices like laptops or desktop computers to do their work, and we've got a solution for that as well. And the good news here is actually, Sophos are very acutely aware of the situation that's going on in the world. So one of the offers that we have on at the moment is if you are using our software in your corporate environment to protect assets that your charity owns, then you're also entitled to use Sophos Home Premium on your volunteer and your users' personal devices at no cost. So have a chat with Phoenix and they'll sort of guide you through that process. But in short, it allows people to deploy some kind of decent endpoint protection on their device without necessarily you having to spend any money on it, and also without you having to manage that as well. This is home user protection that is managed by the individual, so it's not going to put any extra pressure on your IT department. So between those two things, it allows you to use mobile devices in charity situations and also sort of desktop laptops as well, which is obviously really, really useful.
Yeah, and I suppose it goes without saying, and I know this is the case, but these solutions, all of them that we're going to talk about, are going to be very easy to deploy remotely. Obviously, our charities are still probably not going to be back in their offices for a little while, if ever. So I think, it's worth highlighting to all of you guys that these solutions that we're talking about are easy to deploy and you can do it remotely, so you don't have to worry about having any sort of a lot of time away from the jobs that you would usually do, because Sophos has that complete ease of management.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a platform which is called Sophos Central, and it's a web-based portal that you can use to manage all of your security solutions from Sophos. And that's really neat from 2 points of view. But to answer what you were talking about there specifically, because it's web-based, we can see those devices wherever they happen to be. Because obviously you're not necessarily going to have your users in offices. They might be working from home. They might be working from the field. And Sophos Central can see those devices wherever they happen to be. And it allows you to make changes and check the settings and clean up issues wherever that device happens to be, because you're not going to get people back into the office. And you're absolutely right. When it comes to enrolling and deploying new devices, then you can send that out remotely. You don't have to be physically in front of the device to roll that out.
Yeah, and I think that links nicely onto the ease of management problem that I think a lot of charities are worried about when it comes to new solutions that they want to roll out and deploy. And I think when we are speaking to a lot of our charity customers, we're finding that many of them, if not all of them, are going to really struggle to get back into that office space. Obviously, it's seen as quite a luxury now because rent and overheads are quite a huge cost for a lot of these charities. So anything you can do remotely is going to definitely help with the purse strings, but also controlling and mitigating those risks themselves. And
Yeah.
I think that goes nicely onto reducing costs. So I think that's something that we can cover, isn't it, John, from a Sophos point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously having one management platform is inherently going to be more cost effective. Your IT staff are probably already stretched to the max, and difficult choices might be needed to be made about who's going to be deployed to do which activities. And Sophos Central is just a really nice platform that just means you've got one location to manage all of your solutions, and it's just easier, and it's time saving, and obviously time saving, it automatically leads to monetary savings as well. So having it all consolidated in one place is great from that perspective. And it also means as well that you can start to do some really clever things actually with IT security that maybe if you've got multiple different products from different places is not so straightforward. So we talk a lot about synchronized security at Sophos, and it's basically this concept of what traditionally would have been individual security solutions actually working together as a system. So back in the old days, you might have bought your antivirus from one company, and you might have bought a firewall from somewhere else, and they're not going to communicate with each other. There's no mechanism for them to talk to each other. But if you go down the route of having everything under the Sophos banner, for example, then synchronized security comes as sort of part of that solution.
Yeah.
A couple of very simple illustrations. For example, if you see an outbreak on your network and one of your devices gets some kind of infection, then synchronized security can automatically isolate the machine that's got a problem and then stop that infection spreading around the rest of the network. And that's great from a cost saving point of view, because obviously the bigger your outbreak is, the more it's going to cost to resolve that issue. So if we can nip it in the bud and stop it spreading around the network, that's obviously going to save some money. But also bear in mind as well that a lot of the things I'm talking about here are automated.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to employ an army of IT people to sit there looking at the screens all the time, because synchronized security responds for itself. So in that scenario where we have an outbreak and one device is infected, the system automatically responds by isolating it. It could happen in the middle of the night, and it wouldn't make any difference. You don't have to have somebody there constantly monitoring it. And again, that's inherently going to be cost saving, just from the management side of things. But like I said, also when you're containing an outbreak as well, that's going to save you significant chunks of money. Now, synchronized security sounds great, but you might be quite put off by the idea of having to rip away your existing infrastructure and replace everything with a Sophos solution straight away. So it's worth mentioning as well that if you're already mid-cycle through a security product, that there are ways and means that we can work with synchronized security without necessarily having to negate and remove the investment that you've already made. So there's lots of different ways that synchronized security can work with your existing security infrastructure, as well as potentially replacing some of it.
We've covered quite a lot there in quite a short space of time. So we've covered how to mitigate the risks of bringing your own device, which we recognise that a lot of charities are having their volunteers and their users do. Mm-hmm. We spoke about synchronized security, which helps consolidate resources, especially if you've traditionally had many different vendors cover different things like endpoint and firewall, like John mentioned. Reducing costs, which is something that is inherently probably the most important thing that charities need to be doing at the moment, and needing ease of management. So we're going to be joined by Aaron Wood soon, who is our cybersecurity business manager at Phoenix, to join us on a live panel.
Hi there, Aaron. Welcome to the session. Would you like to start out by introducing yourself?
Yes, thank you, John. Hello there. So hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Woods. I am the cybersecurity business manager for Phoenix Software.
Brilliant. And now is probably a good time to talk a little bit more about the relationship that Phoenix have with the charity sector. Could you share some thoughts with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Poppy alluded to at the start of this session, Phoenix have been working with the charity sector pretty much since day one of when Phoenix started about 30 years ago. And our business within that sector has just grown massively over our history. And we've actually now considered a very trusted technology advisor within the sector. So we work not only with some big name charities and of course the smaller charities as well, but we also work quite closely with the charity bodies as well. So we have very good relationships with the likes of Charity Digital, of course, but also with the likes of like the NCVO, SCVO as well. And as I say, we've really become that trusted technology advisor for the sector. So really getting embedded with the charity organisations that we work with, and sort of really understanding not only what their requirements are and their strategy is, but what challenges are they facing, because as we all appreciate, the charity sector, the kind of challenges we see there are quite unique compared to other public sector organisations, and of course corporate organisations as well. So being able to sort of ingrain ourselves within the sector so much so that not only do we understand where you guys are looking to get to in regards to your technology strategy, but also the challenges that you're currently got at the moment, but also the challenges that you may face during that journey as well.
Yeah, that's an important one to talk about, really, because of course we are very wrapped up in the current global situation, but there is hopefully another side to this, and there is a future that we should all be mindful about planning for as well. So is there any thoughts that you can share on what that future might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's no getting away from it. Obviously, the current climate we find ourselves in at the moment is challenging times for everybody. Obviously, particularly the charity sector. You see in the news the sort of stacks that they're sort of pushing out, which again Poppy alluded to at the start of the session. But we've gotten to the stage now, or at least from my point of view anyway, with the conversations I'm having with our clients within this sector, we've gotten to the stage now of where we're starting to plan and look ahead to the future. So, okay, we're in this current climate. Nobody really knows how long we're going to be within this situation, unfortunately, but we need to start looking as to what we're going to be doing on the other side now as well. And the good thing is, and we get this a lot, where especially when I'm talking with people like IT managers and heads of IT and stuff like that, this kind of this situation that we found ourselves in now with COVID has kind of really accelerated their technology and modern working projects and plans within the sector. So a lot of charities I'm speaking to at the moment, they are now looking at a more permanent, flexible working approach to not only the fundraising side of things, but also the previously office-based staff. Which is fantastic, and obviously will hopefully bring an abundance of cost savings for the sector when it comes to sort of rent for buildings and sort of electricity bills and all of that sort of stuff. What we're seeing as kind of a challenge from the clients we're speaking to is they're needing to look at solutions and technology that's going to future-proof them for the next couple of years, regardless of what they end up doing. So whether they end up going 100% remote workers and have nobody based in an office, whether or not they have a 50-50 split where you've got some office-based workers and some remote workers, or whether or not they look to sort of migrate to any cloud platforms such as 365, Azure, GCP, any of that sort of stuff. They're kind of looking for the sort of technology and solutions to offer them the best level of protection regardless of what they do, and this is where sort of cloud managed security and in particular Sophos comes into their own, really, because it is very much a case of however you want to deploy Sophos, or in whatever kind of environment you want to deploy Sophos Central into, on-premise, cloud, remote workers, office workers, whatever it may be, it just works in that environment. You just configure it in the way that you want it to be configured based on how you're working, and let it go with synchronized security, as John alluded to again at the in this session. It just works basically regardless of what you're looking to do. So the clients we're speaking to around that, it's very much cloud managed security, Sophos Central, and future-proofing themselves for those next couple of years, regardless of what that looks like for them.
Okay. And what sort of consultative services can Phoenix offer to help people define their strategy moving forward?
So we can pretty much offer an end-to-end consultancy service for your IT strategy. So, and that ranges from infrastructure, cloud, and security as well. So I'll focus more on the security side of things, just because that's what I do, and that's probably what I know more about as well. But in regards to the consultative services that we offer there, we're reasonably unique in the way that we approach that, because straight from the get-go, and apologies here, John, but we don't tend to focus on the technology or the solution straight away. And the reason we do that, the reason we don't focus on that straight away is because what we want to understand, first of all, is the people and the processes of your organisation. So what people do you have in your organisation? How do they work, or how are they going to be working? As I said before, are they remote? Are they in an office? Are they using their own device? Are they using corporate-owned devices? What processes and procedures have you got in place within the organisation as well to support those people? Is there anything in place? Is there anything that you need to be looking to put in place, such as a BYOD policy and process as well for any users using their own devices? And then once we've got all that information, it's very, very easy for us to then say, this is the technology that is going to help you with what you've got planned and is going to work for you as an organisation with your people and your processes, essentially.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that little insight, Aaron. We should probably leave a little room for questions now, so wrap up this session, and we'll see you on the live Q&A panel very shortly.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much, John.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I'd really like to apologise to you, Poppy, for mispronouncing your surname. I'm so sorry.
Okay, don't worry. It's okay.
I get all sorts of versions of my own name. Yesterday, someone was convinced my name was Rob, even though I told them twice it wasn't. So
don't worry, it's fine.
Thank you so much for the session, Jonathan, Poppy, and Aaron. It was really interesting to learn more about sort of security and what charities can do to harness these things. We have a couple of questions, so I'm going to jump into those. The first one is, and I think this will be a very widespread one, and something I would definitely ask as well. What are your tips for someone like our anonymous questioner who isn't so tech or security savvy?
Okay, I'll start, and I'll let my colleagues at Phoenix chip in a second. But I would suggest find yourself a trusted advisor. In short, you know, if IT isn't your thing, and it isn't most people's thing, and that's fine. Find somebody who is an expert in this field, somebody that you can engage with, somebody that you can trust. Somebody will take the time to find out about your organisation and what you're looking to achieve, and then can work with you to get to those goals. What I would say as well is there's a fantastic resource that we have at Sophos, regardless of whether you're a customer or not, which is called Naked Security, and it's an online blog and social media posts that just talk about security and some of the scams and phishing attacks, and it's all written in very plain English, and it's designed for sort of regular home users and people who use IT in their occupation, just to keep themselves on top of what the threats are. And I said it's just meaningful, practical advice. But I'll let the guys from Phoenix talk a bit more about trusted advisors.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, John. So first of all, trusted advisor would be sort of a great place to start, because obviously you can speak to industry experts such as sort of Sophos and Phoenix. But one thing I would add to that as well is before you start looking at if you're not very tech or security savvy, before you start looking at that side of things, really sort of look at your business, at your organization, because obviously you're going to know your business, you're going to know your organization, and what your strategies are, and sort of where you want to sort of take your organization. Once you know what your organization drivers are, you can then start looking at, okay, what's the risk that's going to be involved in getting us to that stage. So for example, today's topic is being more digital, and there's been some amazing sessions on sort of how charities can be more digital in this day and age. Obviously, the more digital you are, unfortunately, the more open to some of those risks you can be as well. So with the video fundraising stuff that Dean was talking about earlier in his session, fantastic session, fantastic ideas from Dean. But obviously, the more digital you become, the more open to these particular threats and risks that you are, which will be unique to you guys as an organization. There's no sort of one size fits all with security. It will be different for everybody. So really understand what your business objectives are, and then you can align any technology or security considerations to that.
Just to jump in there as well, just like John said, we do have some free resources available at Phoenix too. So if you go onto our website, our blog section, if you just look at the top click at the top, it says news, that we have a raft of blog posts which will provide everything, because obviously whilst we appreciate John being here from a security perspective, we do cover absolutely everything, as Aaron said in our video before. Phoenix also do offer a number of free workshops which cover everything on the technology spectrum. So it can assess your on-premise environment, everything from moving to the cloud, security, Microsoft. So if you did ever want to tap into any of them, just let us know and we can set those up for you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. I think that's probably very reassuring for people, because speaking for myself and generally just, security, it just can seem quite so daunting and stuff. So move on to the next one. Okay, I think this one definitely applies to us. This person asks that using one solution for all of the security requirements isn't best practice. So what do you sort of think about that in your opinion?
Okay, yeah, there's a sort of common idea that if you have different products from different vendors, then you're somehow better protected. But the reality is these days, in terms of how quickly all the different security vendors respond to threats, mean that benefit probably doesn't really exist anymore. And any benefit that you get from having multiple different suppliers is actually probably more than lost and replaced with the ability for the products to work together. So we talked a bit about synchronized security, and we talked about different parts of your security working together as a system, and it only happens when you've got all your security from one place. And those benefits and the ease of management and the time savings associated with it, all those things really far outweigh the perceived benefits, I would say, of having multiple different security products.
Excellent, thank you. And do you have any advice as well, either Aaron or Poppy?
Yeah, I'll just really echo what John said there, and also just add one of the sort of benefits that we see with sort of looking at one solution, especially for the smaller organisations who might not have a dedicated IT team or a large dedicated IT team, is just the ease of management there. Obviously, if you've only got one solution in place, the management of that solution is so much easier. Plus, there's no need or requirement to actually learn multiple systems or multiple technology, so it just makes the whole process so much easier for the people who's actually having to manage this and use this on a day-to-day basis.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, right, so with sort of web attacks being as they are, there's a question about whether Sophos have a solution to offer protection from ransomware attacks and phishing attacks.
Okay, so ransomware is still a big thing, and obviously as soon as you start holding data on your users, your volunteers or your employees, then there's a very serious risk that you're going to be held to ransom for that data. So ransomware is kind of inherently built into all of our next generation endpoint protection products. So basically anything that you install, as long as it's next gen from Sophos, will cover you for ransomware. Phishing is a really interesting topic. So if the audience isn't familiar with the term phishing, it's basically a modern way of saying scam emails. So these are messages that come in, and they'll, depending on what the bad guys are trying to achieve, might dupe you into transferring money to different accounts, to give them your username, your password, to get you to click on a link so further damage happens down the line, all these kind of things. And as much as it pains me to say, as a technology vendor, there isn't really a technology solution to phishing, because it's ultimately a game of social engineering and the bad guys trying to outwit our sort of hapless user. And that's why user training is really, really useful. So we have a product called Phish Threat that you can use to simulate these kind of attacks for your own volunteers, your own staff members, and all your stakeholders. And basically what it does over time is it helps them get better at spotting what is a malicious email, and stop them interacting with it in the wrong ways. So that's definitely a useful tool, and it's something which a lot of even the biggest IT teams in large organizations often overlook. They forget that actually, if you can empower your users to recognize that they're being scammed in the first place, then you're much less likely to become a victim.
That's very good advice, thank you. Okay, so our next question is about using sort of tech as well. And this person asks if two-factor authentication makes a big difference when using IT.
Okay. I think I might defer that one, actually, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, perfect. So two-factor authentication is a big thing within IT, and something that I personally would always suggest that gets enabled. Most technology nowadays will come with some sort of two-factor or multi-factor authentication included in it, and you simply have to turn it on, which I would massively advise you do. Is it sort of a sort of one-stop solution? Absolutely not. Multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is just one step in that whole process. But what it does is it reduces your attack surface quite massively, because what some of these cyber criminals are doing is they're looking for easy targets. They're looking for somebody who they can get into very easily with minimum effort and minimum work. So as soon as they try and attack somebody who's got multi-factor authentication enabled, that's going to basically mean that they've got to work harder to get into that network or onto that device. So they're just going to move on and try somebody else who might not have multi-factor authentication enabled. So it's really more of a deterrent, I would say, than anything else for those sort of spray attacks rather than the actual dedicated attacks, basically.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So we've had some really interesting information, and one of our attendees would like to know where they could start with this process.
So I'll pick that one up first of all, if that's okay, John. Just because the first place to start in any sort of security or indeed technology process at all is the business, is the organisation. Where are you guys as it stands at the moment? And how does that stack up with where you guys want to be in the future? So again, as I said on answering the previous question, everybody's looking at digital transformation at the moment and being more digital. So what technology or processes or solutions have you guys already got in place at the moment that can assist you with that digital transformation and being secure within that kind of environment? And also, more importantly, what are the gaps that you may have in that process as well to be more digital? And then that's where I'd focus the sort of resources and energy, sort of identifying those gaps, but then also identifying the gaps that you guys deem as an organization and as a business to be the biggest risk for you guys. As I say, security is not uniform across organizations or businesses. It is very different, spread across all businesses. So what are your risk factors? What is your sort of appetite to sort of reduce particular risks, and then focus on those areas first? And that could be anything from looking at more technology like Sophos or others that are out there, or it could just be something as simple as updating processes and procedures internally.
Just to follow on from that as well, I know it can be quite daunting what Aaron just said, to go back and assess everything you have or may not have, and talking about risk can be, if you don't know where to start, it can be quite a daunting process to look at. So if you just ever wanted to reach out to Phoenix for just some free advice, you absolutely can do. Just email hello@phoenixs.co.uk and we can take a look at that for you, and we can be your trusted advisor if you need us to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, yeah, more than happy to speak to anybody either on today's session or on a follow-up about security and risk advice for you guys as an organisation. As Poppy will probably testify, I'm an absolute geek when it comes to this stuff. So anybody who wants to give me the opportunity to rant on about this stuff, please do.
Amazing, excellent, thank you so much. And it's so good to have such specialists with us as well.